Okay, so nice to see you again, Aaron. Fred, in case you don't know, Aaron and I are in the same neighborhood in Winnipeg. We're both in Wolseley, and both of our kids go to Laura Secord School, so we see each other around the hood. I just saw him a couple weeks ago.
Good.
Yeah, and you're out there on the West Coast. And I mean, you know how that is with Winnipeg, how close everyone knows everyone, which brings me to my first sort of segue in here about how everyone, since I started learning about you more and more, everyone has a story. When I told people that I was going to do an interview with you, everyone had questions that they wanted to ask. So I have a couple of those questions.
Good, I like questions.
And then the funny thing was, is that, to be totally honest with you, I was a little old when you kind of hit big in '85.
Yeah.
So I was listening to, David Bowie and Prince and things like that. And I wasn't,
of course you were.
I wasn't really on the Fred Penner train, but my little brother loved your shows, stuff like that. But I kind of just sort of grew up. So then when I started looking into you through this documentary and through this process with Aaron, I was so surprised to see how many people had stories. So Aaron, I'll start with my first question with you. What's your story with Fred? How did you two end up meeting and doing this? And was he a big influence on your early life?
Yeah. His show, his music, definite influence for me. And then I guess it comes to, mentioning, I have a son, and going back about 6 years now, he was about 2 years old, and I was looking to, take him to a Fred Penner show. There was one coming up here in Winnipeg at the West End Cultural Center. So I thought, oh, terrific. Let's take my son to see Fred, which I did. But also noticed at the same time that there was a grown-up show, a Fred Penner grown-up show happening at the West End. And so I'm like, well, what's this? So find out that, Fred had started doing these concerts for his fans that, mainly for his fans that have now grown up. They are in adulthood and want to see Fred perform again. And I was like, well, what's this all about? So I ended up going to see the show. And it was just sort of this bizarre kind of experience of seeing these again, mostly young adults kind of revert to children. And just the facade, this kind of, the cool facade that, people like to put on, especially in their 20s, kind of evaporated, and they were kids again. And that sort of triggered something for me of like, well, there's a story here. And so I did a short film about that aspect of Fred, and talking a little bit about his career, but kind of realized, well, there's more of a story to tell here. There's more of, I think Fred's life overall, it made for an interesting film. And so that led to me kind of pursuing and trying to get this, the film Take Good Care of Each Other made, that looks at Fred's life from the early days to today. And so, I was able to get in touch with Fred, going back to this short film, and we met and just kind of...
You didn't know each
other? Never met before. That's right. Yeah. I just sort of had a connection. I was able to kind of meet up with Fred and just kind of pitched him on the idea of doing this film. And he was, I'd say, pretty interested from the get-go, and said, let's sort of do this. And it kind of went from there, and got to the point, where this film, it's shown at the Gimli Film Fest, got produced and made, and it turned out fantastic, and it was quite the journey.
And it's on CBC as well.
That's right. Yeah,
which is great. Good for you. That's awesome.
So on the CBC Gem app.
Which is pretty great stuff coming on there. A lot more stuff. So the second or the third coming of Fred Penner. Is this the second? Was the second when you noticed that Mr. Dressup was doing, apparently in the doc, you noticed Mr. Dressup was doing some shows, and you decided that would work for you? Is that how that came about?
Yeah, more or less. After the series ended in 1997, there was a time where I was in a bit of limbo. I still had gigs, still doing festivals, some soft seat stuff, but everything had sort of slowed down, because the series was a huge part of my life, my creative path. And so I was wondering, well, what is next? In my lifetime, there's always been something that came up that would carry me for another bit of time. That's how the series came along. It was just a in 1985, out of the blue, the offer to do Fred Penner's Place. So now the series was done, and it was, well, I'm still playing, I'm still interested, but it's like, what is the next bigger piece that I'm going to play with? And then I had heard that Ernie, that Mr. Dressup, had been going to campuses and mainly doing a lunchtime with the kids, with the university students.
Yeah.
And I didn't really want to do that. I wanted to go a little farther, I thought, and then doing, because I come from the pub scene in the 70s.
Right.
And so I talked to Pecan, my booking agency, and asked them to throw me into the roster when they were doing the pitching to buyers for campuses. And at first the buyers were saying, sorry, did I hear you right? Fred Penner playing the bar? No, I don't think that'll work. And they said, well, check with your population and see what they think. And immediately it was, yes, bring Fred in. So one of the first gigs was playing at the Pit Pub at UBC, however many years ago, in the early 2000s, and that just was insane. And we had 400 people jammed in this little bar, and they were so just excited to connect with me. And as Aaron was saying, they were immediately reduced to their best common denominator.
Yeah.
And that opened up university touring from Victoria to Dalhousie in Halifax, and it was great. It was a wonderful opportunity again to connect, for me to follow my early fans into their new lives. Mm-hmm. It was inspiring for me to feel that from them, and it continues. I still get lots of feedback from those young adults who are now having their own kids. Yeah. So it's this beautiful circle that just keeps spinning and carrying me along.
Well, and then I saw you did a few, you've done Evolve Festival a couple times.
Yeah.
You did Hillside with the Constantines. Is that true? Were the Cons your backing band or something? I don't know. One of my friends in Toronto said that because they're friends of mine, Bri Webb and Steve Lamke and all those guys.
I think we did a thing on stage. There were many people, but
yeah, because that's an element of cool.
Very cool.
Yeah,
playing the Evolve Festival was very cool. Mm-hmm. I mean, what's really a delight is seeing how these incredibly talented Canadian performers who do have a connection with me through their own
right
or through their kids now are we're very excited to just connect with me, and that's how the latest CD, the Hear the Music CD, evolved into having people like Ron Sexsmith and Good Lovelies and Alex Cuba and Basha Bulat, etc.
I know Basha. Yeah.
They were delighted to come on board with me, and I'm just I'm over the moon here at this point in my career. It's really a delight to know that those people who I have great admiration and appreciation of are happy to play with the cool factor of hanging out with Fred Penner.
Yeah, well, in Toronto, I used to run this music festival called the Bloor Ossington Folk Festival.
Okay.
And it was in Christie Pitts Park, and I had a co-artistic director who, in about 2015 or so, I shut it down 2016. 2015, he says, why don't we book Fred Penner? And I was like, Fred Penner, what do you mean? This is an adult rock, because I hadn't heard that you were doing these kinds of things. It was an adult rock festival, really. And he's like, no, this is a big, but we looked into it and we couldn't get you at the time. You were busy. But we were going to book you at that time. So
cool.
So that would have been neat.
I know that area there, the Christie Pitts. My wife had a condo just down at Lansdowne in Bloor.
Okay.
So Christie Pitts was a regular hangout along the way. But that would have been cool. I'm sorry it didn't happen.
Yeah, Natural Amphitheater. Yeah, it was neat.
Oh, it's a brilliant space. It really is. Yeah.
So then this kind of, So now with the documentary and this new CD, do you think this is maybe the third coming of Fred Penner? And I'm going to say this: who do you think you're more like in this instance, Mr. Rogers with the documentary and that, or is it Sugar Man? Are you Sugar Man? Because I think you're Sugar Man.
Well, I understand the Sugar Man connection. The thing with Sugar Man is he was pushed off into the corner because he was Dylan-esque, and Dylan sort of had that journey wrapped up. So Sugar Man never really evolved too far, you know. So I don't think that worked, because the evolution of 45 years of this being my life has worked. And it maybe is closer to Mr. Rogers. I think certainly in the appreciation of what music and connection can do for the child.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's always been, you know, the key for me. The old never underestimate your ability to make a difference in the life of a child, that I repeat often and probably ad nauseum. But it's an accurate phrase, and I believe in the power of music, and I'm really thankful that Aaron came in on that level and brought forth the Take Good Care of Each Other video, which touches on so much of my integrity, I hope, along the way. But it's a fascinating journey, to say the least.
No kidding. And so, Aaron, what was it like getting to know Fred? Is he really as nice as is there? What I had one friend wanted to know, and he's making me he needed to ask this. He wants to know, what's Fred Penner's edge? I want to know what Fred Penner's edge is. I was like, well, have you seen Cornstalk? Have you seen some of the early stuff? There might be an edge there, I think. But Aaron, what do you think? How was it getting to know Fred, and is he as wonderful off camera as he is on camera? That's a question for you.
Yeah, no,
be very careful here, Aaron. Be very careful.
No, Fred is amazing. Yeah, just the whole way through. You know, terrific. Yeah, same guy he is on camera. You know, in concert as he is, you know, in person for me. And so, you know, everyone I interviewed for the film. You know, a number of people from Fred's family, Fred's career. At different stages, just everyone, just nothing but positive things to say. And yeah, that was sort of my experience too, putting this together, and just, you know, super helpful in you know, access and interview time and materials. Like you'll see, you know, in the film, you see a lot of, you know, photos from Fred's childhood, from his Cornstalk days, and you know, all the way up to, you know, Fred Penner's place. And so just, you know, having access to all that, and yeah, Fred totally supportive the whole way through.
Was it tricky getting some of that footage from Fred Penner's place, or was that easily available for you to cut into the doc?
No, I mean, you know, CBC had the footage available to provide. So, you know, there's a bit of a process getting that, but yeah, it worked out well. And yeah, it was just great to be able to include that. And, you know, things like the Cornstalk footage. I mean, going into the documentary, you know, as I was sort of doing the initial research in that, like, you know, again, knew Fred from the 80s as a child, but yeah, I wasn't aware of this Cornstalk era that Fred had in the 70s. And, you know, the zaniness that crew kind of put on. I mean, I know it's like a combination if Monty Python met Sesame Street. I mean, it's just kind of pretty crazy stuff. Yeah, that's true. And Al Simmons starts the documentary by saying Fred Penner is a great guy, or just a super nice guy, and that's how it starts out. And I think it really plays out throughout the entire documentary that you've really done a lot of, you know, great and wonderful and nice things that have touched a lot of people's hearts throughout the years. And so that's very, very cool. So what's next for both of you? Fred, you can start, and then Aaron, I'd like to hear what you're up to as well.
Who knows? Who knows? It's going to be very bizarre next year, because if in fact this country ever opens up again, but all the gigs that I had, because the COVID came in, you know, mid-March. I was in the middle of my 40th anniversary Cat Came Back tour,
Exactly.
right? And we had played about a dozen or more concerts, you know, in the East. We came back, did Winnipeg, we played Saskatchewan, we played Calgary, you know, the first week of March, and then headed up to Edmonton, and we were primed to play the Winspear Theater in Edmonton, which is one of the most beautiful theaters I've ever seen, and I was so excited about playing there. We had the video, because this concert run had a full length video that accompanied the performance to make the 40th anniversary special,
Yeah.
and it was working really well, and we were very excited. And then 2 hours before the performance in Edmonton, the Alberta Health Authority shut everything down, so we just scattered and came back to our bases. But the bizarre thing is that now all those gigs, all these festivals that would have been happening this summer, and of course the continuation of the 40th anniversary tour, all of those have been rebooked into 2021.
Yeah.
So if this in fact happens, next year is going to be an insane time, you know, coast to coast touring.
Yeah.
So and part of me is excited about it, and another part is, oh geez, do I have to do this again?
Right. Yeah, it's exhausting.
Yeah, I love performing. I mean, that's been my life. Well, my only career really for 45 plus years. But it's going to be a real challenge to get back into the flow and the swing of that. So that's next. And I've been playing a lot of guitar almost every night. So I have a whole whack of more material that I hope in the next year will become another album, and I don't know what that's going to be. But so I'm still maintaining my creativity and my love of life and my appreciation for the nature that I'm in the midst of now. It's a good life all around.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful. You showed me your home earlier on. I think we were recording that, but it looks.
Oh, good.
Congratulations on the new move out there, and it looks
Thank you.
Beautiful. Yeah, it looks like a wonderful place. So, like I had said, I had talked with and Aaron. Sorry, I'd like to hear what's next for you, because I know you finished your Nature of Things documentary that you were working on, and you and I had been talking about a couple things a year ago, and then you were also working on a Penner story at that time as well. I think both of those projects are done. So, what do you have in the works?
Yeah. As you mentioned, a Nature of Things documentary on coral reefs that I produced in partnership with Merit Motion Pictures, and so that's available on CBC Gem as well, if anyone's interested in checking that out. But yeah, I am working on some other projects. Nothing official to announce yet, but there's a couple projects, a documentary, and a sort of a VR 360 historical documentary. Sort of a new bit of territory for me in terms of storytelling. But yeah, just nothing official to talk about with those yet. But yeah, things they're moving along, but things have sort of, with the coronavirus, there's been some delays as a result of the situation we're living in now. So yeah, hopefully some announcements, to make in the coming months.
Right, great. Wow, that's awesome. Well, I was told when I was putting this together, I was supposed to keep it around 15, 20 minutes. I think we might be around there. But I would like to say that, again, Fred, I had talked with a bunch of people, and everyone had questions. Everyone had stories. And so I heard stories about you playing shows, and you at the dance, selling out the Danforth a little while. I heard a story about you playing at a Yukon, in the Yukon until about 3 in the morning with a group of musicians, and then having them play out So Long or Goodbye, and you going out a side window, exiting through a side window, which I thought sounded about right. I have a friend who was at that show.
Oh my goodness, that was it was a house party.
Oh, was it?
And it got so busy You know, it wasn't a huge house, but it just got so busy. There was no way to get from where I was, you know, to the front door. So I opened up the window.
Good. Well, the one of
Oh, that's good. I haven't thought of that one for a long time.
that's funny. The head of our documentary programming department here at the Gimli Film Festival happened to be at that show, so she was the one who told me about it, Vivian, and I thought that was
Oh,
funny.
brilliant.
My wife she's a little younger than I am. She went to school with your daughters.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So everyone, just everywhere I turned, people had a story about Fred Penner. I felt bad that I didn't really have one, but now I can say to everyone, "Oh, really? Well, here's my Fred
Right.
Penner story."
There you go. And you're not to be faulted. I don't, you know, I'm happy to be connecting with you now.
Yeah.
And it's those stories. That's really interesting. Are there other questions that people came up with or thoughts?
Okay. Yeah. One of I have some questions here. One of my buddy, Eamon McGrath, who's an amazing musician, songwriter, and he's a pretty heavy, he's a pretty crazy dude. And he says that he wanted me to tell you thanks for Riders in the Sky. Was that,
Ghost Riders in the Sky, yeah.
Ghost Riders in the Sky. He wanted me to thank you for that because when he was about 4 or 5 years old, he started listening to that song.
Okay.
And that song really, I mean, was one of those songs that he wanted to become a musician because of that. Ended up becoming a fantastic musician. I'm going to be doing a little doc series with him in the coming months if COVID lightens up as well.
Cool.
My wife just thought it was very cool that I was having an interview with Fred Penner because she knew your family growing up and she knew your daughters growing up, but she hadn't really met you before, and so she was excited that that was going on. Then my son is a big fan of The Cat Came Back, of course. He hasn't seen any of Fred Penner's plays yet, but now that I know all this, I'm going to introduce him to it. And when you come back to Winnipeg to do a show, we will be there for sure. 100%.
Oh, that's fabulous. Thank you so much. Yeah, I appreciate that. That's great. How old is your son?
He's 6.
Yeah, dynamite. Great, great, great.
Yeah.
And I did want to mention, you know, Aaron's work on the nature of things, and generally, you know, your work, Aaron, really is exceptional. You're very accurate and clear, and you work really hard at telling your stories with that kind of integrity and accuracy. And I don't know if I've ever told you directly that, but I appreciate your work in this. You know, not just with this, but just generally in the world. You're a hardworking soul, and I keep it up.
Okay, well, thanks a lot, Fred. Appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'd like to thank both of you guys so much for Aaron for letting us use your film for our festival, and for both of you for doing this as well. It means a lot to the Gimli Film Festival. It means a lot to all of us to connect with both of you. So thank you both very much.
Honored. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Have a great rest of the COVID summer, and we'll see you guys in the fall.
All right.
Be well, gentlemen. Great to see you.
You as well. Take care.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.